In August of 1988, the heat outside Amarillo baked the tarmac into rippling mirages as Louise Brennan guided her Lion into the cargo bay of a small Cessna. The Lion's name was Samson, the first animal she had ever rescued and her constant companion. Declawed, teeth filed, sickly when she had found him, yet nursed back into a shivering tower of muscle and affection, Samson followed only her. That morning she coaxed him into the plane with promises murmured in her rough, off-key voice. 1 pilot, 1 lion, and 3 hours to Austin, where she planned to present him to donors, securing the future of her fragile sanctuary. Her business partner, Bobby Nash, waved from the edge of the strip, handsome in his boots and hat, the benefactor who bankrolled her dream. Lily, her 8-year-old daughter, had been left at home. Louise promised to call when she landed. The promise echoed through decades. Because she never arrived, the plane never appeared on the horizon in Austin, and no Mayday distress call ever touched the radios. 2 weeks the search lasted. Men scouring ridges and canyons, Civil Air Patrol tracing the skies, volunteers dragging the parched desert for aluminum shining in the sun. But West Texas is vast and cruel, and nothing showed. Rangers concluded the area too remote, fuel reserves too far gone, the odds too slim. The plane was declared lost. Louise presumed dead. Bobby Nash made a show of grief, delivered a mourning speech about sacrifice and courage, raised little Lily as if she were his own, and turned the ranch into a sprawling empire of exotic animals. The desert kept its silence. It was 2008 when the silence cracked. A historic drought sank water tables and emptied ponds across the state. South of Marathon, a rancher checking his cracked stock pond saw a glimmer in the mud, sunlight gleaming on metal. He walked closer and recognized the faded tail number. He called the sheriff. Deputies taped the area and looked into a pond shrunk into a muddy pit no wider than a living room, and there the Cessna lay, nose-buried, preserved by decades of clay. Windows gone, aluminum twisted, cargo door hanging open. Inside were tangled harnesses, shredded upholstery, and absence. No bodies, no bones. Just 10 feet away lay a collar. Leather so weather-cracked it would break if bent. Brass plate catching the low sun. Samson. The collar's buckle wasn't snapped by force. It had been opened. Inside, a primitive GPS tracker survived. When specialists pulled its memory, they found coordinates. 4 days of pings beginning at the crash and moving northeast 3 miles before stopping. 4 days after Louise vanished, she had still been alive and walking. In Austin, Lily Brennan was sorting paint swatches for a new apartment when a call arrived from a Marathon area code. She hesitated, picked up, and heard Sheriff Coleman's voice. "Miss Brennan, we found your mother's plane." Paint chips scattered across the hardwood like confetti. She barely held herself as he said the words. No bodies recovered. No proof of death yet. Could she come down and help them evaluate? She left at 3 in the morning, headlights cutting lonely arcs across hill country roads. She had taken that route often as a child, holiday pilgrimages with Bobby back to the ranch, where he paraded her like a charity case saved from ruin. By dawn she drove through miles of nothing, vultures circling overhead. At Marathon gas station she met Coleman, weathered by the West Texas sun, younger than she expected but steady. He told her her mother flew often, knew every airstrip from Mexico to Corpus Christi, ran rescues no one else dared. That day she had carried Samson for the donors who wanted to see the king of her ragged menagerie. He was her first, he said. She wouldn't part with him easily. They drove out to the dry pond. Yellow tape, dusty state trooper trucks, investigators bending across cracked mud. And in the middle, the plane, rising like some unearthed rib cage. Seeing it snapped Lily back decades. 8 years old, waiting at a window for headlights that never came. The wreck was wrong. Not burned, not shattered. Bent propeller, but not torn. Cargo door open from the inside, as if the plane had been placed into Earth gently, unwilling to fight any longer. An investigator named Morrison explained, "Impact suggests controlled descent. She was trying to land, not a crash from the sky." Then Morrison showed her what chilled her. 10 feet away, evidence flag, and collar sealed in plastic. "Samson's," she whispered, and nearly fell. The leather not torn, the buckle pried with a tool, tracks on the aluminum from claws, scratch marks where something pushed its way out. The GPS chip displaying Samson's path northeast before stopping dead. "Whatever wore this lived days," Morrison said carefully. "Somebody was alive and walking." Together they followed the trail. They found a ravine shelter, stones arranged, tarp long rotten, water bottles bleached. On the wall, carved by knife, "LB Day 2, Samson injured." No sign of search. Next message, "Day 3, saw plane, can't signal, wrong area." Then blood, then claw marks gouged deep, not territorial scratches, but desperate rakes of a giant cat in pain. Mixed into the dirt were boot prints from decades before, size 11s with fancy star-shaped studs hammered into the heels. Bobby Nash's style exactly. In that canyon, officers unearthed something more. A bag with pilot's log and audio recorder. Restored, the tape played Louise's voice, labored breath, notes describing the crash, Samson's worsening internal wounds, and then her discovery, 12 tiger cubs in quarantine barns at Mash's ranch, hidden with no permits. "He's been breeding," her faint voice said, "selling." Then a pause, the sound of an approaching plane. Relief. "Bobby, thank God!" Voices, Bobby's calm, cold. A confrontation, pleas for help, snarls, gunshot. Louise screaming, "You shot my lion!" His answer, self-defense. "You're going to have an accident out here. The desert's going to keep this." She begged. Samson groaned through shattered lungs. The recording ended in anguish. The desert was silent for 20 years, not because it buried the truth, but because someone ensured it. Investigators widened their search. At the grave of stones where roses were planted, they jackhammered through cement Bobby had poured for a supposed feed shed. Beneath lay bones of 2 people, one female, consistent with Louise. Deeper, older remains, Tom Brennan, Lily's father, long said to have died in a car accident. In veterinary records from 1988 appeared another damning detail. Bobby Nash arriving with severe lacerations consistent with large cat attack 4 days after Louise's flight. Fence wire, he had claimed. The doctor had sutured 37 gaping wounds inflicted by claws Samson no longer had. All the more proof of his loyalty, fighting even declawed. Bobby was the sole man who had known where to look. He organized the original searches, directed them away from the true region, walked around for years carrying Lily's trust like another trophy. The federal raid revealed much more. Beneath the ranch they found an entire underground complex, built like a morgue for the living. Rows of cages, birthing rooms, shipping crates, medical logs. Ledgers tracked millions in contracts and customers across continents. Exotic cats brayed for color mutations. Tiger cubs stolen from mothers. Lions funneled to private collectors and hunting parks. A global traffic empire disguised as conservation. When confronted, Bobby pivoted from denial to righteousness. He argued he had saved animals by bending rules, funded real rescues with black market profits. He declared Louise naive, unable to stomach what reality demanded. But tapes and testimony destroyed him. Miguel Reyes, the ranch hand, finally broke decades of silence, admitting he saw him sabotage the plane's fuel line and later smuggle heavy tarps onto a mysterious midnight flight. Louise's own carved rock messages spoke from the grave. Her final notes proved Bobby isolated them, shot her lion, forced a choice, silence or death. She had chosen to remain with Samson until the end. The state accused him of murder, trafficking, racketeering, cover-up spanning decades. The jury listened to Louise's voice trembling through crackling tape, pleading with the man who raised her daughter. They watched his secret videos, his ledger records, evidence thicker than Bible pages. They took 6 hours to convict. In court, Lily faced him, older and hollow, but still dangerous with words honed for persuasion. He tried to claim her loyalty, insisted he'd loved her like his own. She told him bluntly he had raised her on top of her mother's grave. He was sentenced to death alongside stacked life terms. Helen, his wife, bargained testimony for immunity. Dozens of accomplices fell. The Nash empire collapsed. The desert secrets lifted, piece by piece. But endings are uneasy. Afterward, the ranch came under federal restitution, offered to Lily, the daughter of the woman he betrayed. She walked the property in silence, through barns where cubs once cried, past tunnels echoing with ghosts. She ordered heavy machines to collapse the underground structures, bury them in cement. Above, she planted desert willow groves and enclosures large enough for animals to roam real ground. She named it Samson's Haven. Years later, buses of children arrived gazing at lions lounging in grass instead of cages. Miguel, aged and bent, carried notebooks of accounts that became exhibits in global conferences against trafficking. In the sanctuary, a grave lay beneath trees where breeze carried white flowers, Louise Brennan, who chose to die with her lion. Beside her, Samson's bones, at last given proper resting place, though even skeleton could not capture his loyalty. Standing at their side, Lily felt peace that was not neat closure, but something heavier. Her life measured by lies finally turned to truth. Her sanctuary built upon ruins would live by the principle her mother scrawled in journals, etched on the sanctuary gates. Every life saved matters to that life. Children pressed their faces to compound glass, gasping at white tigers splashing. Volunteers whispered Samson's story. And at dusk, when desert heat softened into violet cold, the lions of Samson's Haven lifted their voices into the sky. Their roars rolled across the ground Louise once carved with a knife and her last words. Sometimes, in that strange chorus, Lily heard it, not just roars, but that particular sound her mother had once written about, that Samson himself had made only for those he trusted. Not quite a purr, not quite a growl. Something else entirely. Something that was love made audible. Lou Brennan's final act was to etch truth into stone and to trust a lion until death. It took 20 years for her daughter to follow the marks carved across desert walls and clawed into trees, but the trail led where it had to a cage door finally swung open, to truths too heavy to bury under roses and lies, and to a sanctuary where justice, however late, roamed free.